What's going on about this Afro think tank? Don't you think it's pretty weird and sad that America is deporting people out of the country to countries that don't belong to them? I mean, isn't that kind of weird? Like, how is it that America is so desperate to get rid of what they call criminal illegal aliens or whatever, right? That if the person's from Venezuela, they will send them to Nigeria. A person could be from Vietnam, they'll send them to Cambodia. Well, shit, actually, that's not bad. If a person's from Vietnam, they're going to send them to, like, Brazil or some crap. Like, they're sending people, right? And a lot of the times, these people are people who were either brought at a very young age, right? For all intents and purposes, they are American, right? And they know nothing of the country at which they're supposed to be from, right? And so, or they may come from a country that's currently in turmoil or currently in some sort of civil war, some sort of America-sponsored chaos, right? And America would deport a person who should be a refugee for all intents and purposes back to the country at which they were seeking asylum from, or send them to another country where they have other people seeking asylum from that country to America. Like, the disregard for humanity this Trump administration have shown, right, should definitely go into the history books, and not just Donald Trump, but the entire Confederate country of the Republicans, because the Republicans most definitely a reconstituted Confederacy, right, trying to take power in the Union via politics, since the Union never punished the treacherous Confederates, you know, after the entire war, which is crazy. What happens when white supremacy doesn't hold white supremacy accountable? More white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just completely crazy. Now, what if these countries start deporting Americans who are, for all intents and purposes, legally in those countries? And what if they start deporting Americans to other countries, right? What if they start doing that? What if other countries start showing the same energy that America is currently showing to the rest of the world? Because America's disrespecting the entire world by deporting people to countries that they know nothing of, that it's impossible for them to establish themselves. They don't speak the language. I mean, how can any individual getting deported out of America being discombobulated to another country that have zero cultural references or zero cultural connection to their culture and expect them to somehow navigate that system and survive? I mean, this is blatantly this is some kind of new purge, some kind of new ethnic cleansing. We're gonna have to title this some kind of like new invention of the white man. Like, we don't care, just go anywhere but here. And then, of course, America uses its leverage to threaten or coerce, politicians of these various different countries who will gladly take goddamn C-130 full of $100 bills from America in order to take a few refugees who they're not even going to take care of. Like, they're not even going to take care of these people. They're going to say, oh yeah, I'll take this US dollars. You go ahead and drop off whoever such and such from Venezuela here in Africa. They're going to walk out of the goddamn airport and we're not going to give two shits, right? They're going to be off to the races to be taken advantage of by any manner of criminals who will see these people as some sort of target. But, I mean, I don't know what we're going to do after this. Like, when the Trump administration is over, right, it's going to be like hitting the lights at the club at 2 o'clock when it was time for the lights to turn on, and the last call for alcohol already went. And we're going to turn the lights on, right? And we're going to see how absolutely disgusting everybody looks who thought they was having a good time when the lights were dim. See, these white folks are having a good time because they're hiding behind all the shit that's being thrown at the wall. They're hiding behind all the chaos and all the news stories that's so repetitive that a lot of people can get away with shit and no one will know about it. But soon the smoke's going to clear, and we're going to have to lay all this shit out, all this stuff, and all the people who were responsible for this completely and totally unconstitutional, illegal criminal administration and all of its actions. And we should have thousands of court cases, thousands of lawsuits. We just need to build new prisons for all of these rich white men who became richer over the time. And that's what we're thinking, because we know rich white men don't get held accountable, because other rich white men, even if they know they should be held accountable, won't do it, because then they'll set a standard that white men who are rich can be held accountable, and they be damned if that's the case, right? But a few people will be thrown under the bus. You know, all the POCs who participated and collaborated with white folks, they'll all get thrown under the bus for sure, guaranteed. And, you know, that's just how it is. But it's completely ridiculous what America's doing. It's shameful as an American. I would say I feel ashamed, but this is clearly not my administration. This is definitely white supremacist administration. So I don't feel ashamed as an American, right? Because my part of America did not vote for this, right? Do not support this, and my part of America is currently being attacked the same way everybody around the world is being attacked. So we all in the same boat against white Christian evangelical, pretending white Christian evangelical white men, Jewish white men, anything that's a white man, whatever religion, Catholic, Catholicism, Islam. And even if you look at the Muslims, most of the Muslims causing all the problems, if you look at their leadership, those are all European descended Arabs, right, causing all the problems. So it's really just white folks all around, all European descended people, whoever they're pretending to be, whether they're pretending to be Semitic Jews, pretending to be Arabs, pretending to be South Africans, pretending to be Native Americans, pretending to be Australian, pretending to be Samoan, pretending to be New Zealander, pretending to be all kind of shit. They play pretend, and they fight and kill for their pretend thoughts and dreams and fantasies, right? And the rest of the world got to deal with this shit. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
ATT News Network, Eswatini. This is ATT News Network, Afro Think Tank News Network. Our fourth story takes us from American immigration enforcement thousands of miles across the Atlantic to the southern African kingdom of Eswatini. And the people arriving here aren't necessarily Eswatini citizens coming home. They're people being deported from the United States. This practice is known as third country deportation. Normally, when most people hear the word deportation, they imagine a straightforward process. A person is determined to have no legal right to remain in a country, and that individual is returned to his or her country of nationality. Third country deportation introduces another possibility. If the United States cannot, or chooses not to, send an individual directly to that person's home country, another government may agree to receive the deportee. Eswatini is now participating in such an arrangement. Reuters reported on August 27 that 2 additional deportees had arrived in the country, bringing the reported number received under the arrangement to more than 30. And that raises an obvious question. Why Eswatini? More importantly, why should any African country accept people who aren't its citizens on behalf of the United States? From Washington's perspective, third country agreements can provide another way to enforce removal orders when returning someone directly to their country of nationality is difficult. Supporters of stricter immigration enforcement argue that a deportation order has little meaning if governments have no practical mechanism for carrying it out. But critics see a very different problem. If someone is transported to a country where that individual has no citizenship, family, community, or previous residence, what happens next? Where does that person live? Can that individual legally work? Can the deportee challenge the transfer? How long can that person remain? Who pays for housing, security, healthcare, and other necessities? And what obligations does the receiving African government assume? Those questions transform this from an American immigration story into an African sovereignty story. African governments have the authority to negotiate agreements with foreign governments. But African citizens also have legitimate reasons to ask what their governments receive in exchange, what commitments have been made, and whether those arrangements serve their national interests. There is also a larger international question. Should wealthy countries be permitted to solve difficult immigration cases by transferring people to smaller or less wealthy countries willing to receive them? Supporters may describe that as international cooperation. Critics may describe it as outsourcing immigration enforcement. The answer depends heavily on the terms of the agreement, the legal protections available to deportees, and the transparency surrounding what each government has promised. An AT&T News Network believes another distinction is essential. Debating immigration enforcement is legitimate. Governments have borders. Countries establish immigration laws. People can reasonably disagree about how strict those laws should be. But regardless of political position, the people affected remain human beings entitled to whatever protections international and domestic law provide. For Africans in the African diaspora, this story deserves particular attention because decisions made in Washington are increasingly producing consequences thousands of miles away on the African continent. American immigration policy is no longer merely an American border story. Africa has become part of the system. The question now is whether these agreements represent mutually beneficial international cooperation, or the beginning of a system in which smaller African nations become holding destinations for immigration problems created elsewhere. That is what AT&T News Network will continue investigating. This is AT&T News Network, Afro Think Tank News Network. Learn something, teach something.